and their accumulation of gold, their rampant accumulation of commodities, not just gold, nickel and copper and iron and lumber and all of these things that you would need in a war chest, a real war chest. And they are building an economy and a system based upon equity when ours is based upon debt. When everyone expects the dollar to crater through 90 and plummet, that's when it's time to realize it probably won't happen. I've heard rumors that the PBOC has told their banks to start buying dollars, that the dollar has gotten too weak against the renminbi, or the renminbi has gotten too strong against the dollar, and it makes acquisition of all of the world's commodities difficult. I think they would rather see a strong dollar, at least now, until course is reversed. But yeah, I think until we see a real challenger emerge to challenge the dollar for singular world reserve status, yeah, you will see, I think, somewhat of the milkshake theory where people rush to the dollar in times of turmoil. But I mean, I guess if I were going to take it a step further, I would say this is a temporary phenomenon, because ultimately I believe what the Chinese have done and are doing is setting up to do just that, to challenge the US dollar for singular world reserve status. And if you look at what they've done, you guys, they set up a system almost identical to the SWIFT system in all the BRICS nations. And a lot of the European countries, much to the chagrin of the US, have signed on to it. It is a system that will sidestep the SWIFT system, which the U.S. uses as a punitive stick, if you will, when in sanctions, when countries are not doing what the U.S. feels is in their best interest. So they set that up, and then they set up the Shanghai Gold Exchange. The Shanghai Gold Exchange, which has delivered almost 90 times more gold than the COMEX market over the last 2 years, and the reason that it has is because they set up the Chinese petro-yuan bond. Chinese petro-yuan bond directly challenges the U.S. petrodollar status. China can sell or buy oil from Iran and natural gas from Russia. Again, they don't care about any punitive action that the U.S. is going to take against them. They're continuing to do it. And those bonds, which are denominated in yuan, are immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. This is why they've delivered so much more gold than the COMEX. So just right there, you have a SWIFT system complement or sidestep. You have the petrodollar sidestep, and then you look at a country through the Chinese Belt, Road, and Rail Initiative we've talked about, where they're connecting 70% of human population between Asia and Africa, that most of the contracts are settling in the new Chinese digital yuan. They're ahead of us on that forefront as well with the digital currency, because what you see right there is 70% of human population, 45% of global GDP right now, before they industrialize Africa. And they are connecting the two continents, not just by maritime channels in blue there, or railroad. They're also doing it digitally. That digital connection of 70% of human population takes a copious amount of silver. But because it's all being done on the digital yuan, you see, what makes the dollar strong is everyone has to use it to settle contracts in. But the Chinese are incentivizing the rest of the world, or the rest of Africa here, where all of these contracts are being settled, to use the digital yuan. And so now you are indoctrinating 3/4 of human population into a new system. And if they come out and back it by gold and use the distributed ledger to show the immutability of that gold, the veracity of it, it's game over. And I think that's exactly what they are doing. And they already spent the last several years doing it internally, building their ghost cities and all the airports and all the infrastructure. Now they're moving out to where all of the commodities are located, and that is in those two continents. Now, they have been accumulating more gold than anyone in the world for a very long time. They took 60 tons last month, 50 to mainland, 10 to Hong Kong. And they are, in general, accumulating somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 tons a month or more. And that's what we know of. And this goes back a long time, but they're also the largest producers of gold in the world. And they don't export an ounce. And so if I had to guess, if I put it all together, I see a progression where they are building an infrastructure not only internally with their ghost cities and their 12 airports a month or a year that they're building, and the new roads and the bridges, and it's just a beautiful infrastructure, but now they're taking it to Africa, where so many of the world's commodities are located in sub-Saharan, and they're going to create an infrastructure where they dominate the landscape with the new Chinese digital yuan. And I believe in my heart of hearts, you guys, that for now the dollar is still king, but when it becomes obvious that all of this money creation and all of this deficit spending and the modern monetary theory and the basic universal income bullshit that has been going on, that is eviscerating the value of the dollar, when it becomes obvious that there is nowhere left to go but down the inflationary drain, that's when they pull out the trump card and say, well, here are our real gold figures, the amount of gold that we own. Alistair McLeod came out the other day and said it's 38,000 tons. We supposedly have like 8,500 tons. They supposedly have 38,000, and he said 20,000 went to the state, 18,000 to the people. You know, this is a country that runs advertising campaigns on TV, on the back of buses, on billboards, just like the beautiful one behind you, telling their people to buy gold. So between the state and the public, they expect to have, or he expects them to have 38,000 tons, almost 5 times what we have. And their trump card, if you will, to me, is when it's obvious that the dollar is spiraling down that inflationary drain, they come out and they issue a gold backing to their digital yuan, and it's game over for the US. The moral of the story is they think in terms of decades, and you can see that in terms of their infrastructure, both internally and externally, the way that they've set up systems to usurp the petrodollar and the SWIFT system, and their accumulation of gold, their rampant accumulation of commodities, not just gold, nickel and copper and iron and lumber and all of these things that you would need in a war chest, a real war chest. And they are building an economy and a system based upon equity when ours is based upon debt. So they're pulling that money out, and instead money that we gave them is now financing the ultimate demise of the dollar in financing this, what is the most ambitious infrastructure project ever attempted in human history. This is a big deal. I used to say that Basel III reclassification of gold as a tier 1 reserve was the biggest event. Well, this is 1A, or maybe passes the reclassification, but it all fits into play. First, they all start bringing back their gold from the Bank of England and the New York Fed. Then they start wickedly accumulating it, they being the central banks. Then they reclassify it, and you can see the progression that's happening. Everything is moving away from the dollar being the supreme value or the store of value, which really it isn't any longer. And I think we are witnessing history in the making. And when I say this is the biggest event of our children's career, our lives rather, teaching your children Mandarin right now ain't a bad idea, because that's the way it looks like the power is shifting. And it may not happen today or tomorrow or June 28th.